Well, it all looked to be too good. Ronaldo had scored his third goal in 2 games, and it looked like a routine win for Manchester United when up stepped Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who was sent off for a tackle. You get a pat in the back for in Rio Ferdinand's days. Ferdinand, who of course played just 10 years ago in the Premier League. Welcome along to Team 33. It's Champions League week in the world of football, and there's plenty to talk about with Oisin McQuierns. Hello.
Hello, how are you, Enda?
And Jack O'Toole is with us as well. Jack, how are you getting on?
Not too bad, Enda. Not too bad. Thanks for having us on.
So a fair warning to our listeners and our viewers, if I make a weird noise or a weird face, it's because we're recording this at 6:14 on Thursday, and Celtic are currently 2-0 up against Real Betis in the Europa League. Juranovic just scored a penalty. So if there's a goal in that game, I can't promise that I won't make a reaction. So that's just a fair warning to anybody who's watching or listening to the show. We're going to talk about the Champions League tonight, though, because the Europa League is still ongoing, so we can't really react to that. West Ham are 1-0 up as I currently speak. Mikel Antonio scored there. No surprise that he's the one that gets West Ham's goal in their return to Europe. But we'll start with the Champions League results from the week. So it was pretty routine wins for the teams from England in the Champions League, bar Manchester United, who lost 2-1 to Young Boys. Young Boys, that's one of their only ever wins in the Champions League at this level. Chelsea 1-0 winners against Zenit St. Petersburg. Liverpool 3-2 winners against AC Milan in what was a really good game on Wednesday night. And Man City 6-3 winners over RB Leipzig. Jack Grealish announcing himself in the Champions League with a goal and an assist in that game. And other notable results, I guess, Barcelona getting absolutely hammered by Bayern Munich 3-0 at the Nou Camp. So that's a sign of where Bayern Munich are and a sign of where Barcelona are as well, especially. We'll start with the 2-1 win for Young Boys over Manchester United. I mean, it all looked to be just too good, as I said in the intro. You know, Ronaldo had come to the club. He'd, fired them to a win at the weekend against Newcastle. He scored again, the opener in this game, and it would have been a pretty substantial, pretty handy win for Manchester United. They were in control of the game up until the point of Aaron Wan-Bissaka's red card. I don't think we need to debate the validity of that red card. I think we need to debate the validity of Rio Ferdinand's comments saying that you would have got a pat in the back in his day for making that kind of tackle. I mean, that was a red card in any era of football.
Yeah, well, I don't know what day Rio Ferdinand thinks he's in, the 1920s or something, because that's a red card. Like, it is quite clearly a red card. I mean, he stamped that. Like, he caught him flush. It could have, to be fair, it's one of those actually could have resulted in quite a bad injury. I don't think the man even went off or anything like that. I think he was all right, but every day of the week, that's a red card, definitely. Excessive force, I suppose you could say, as well as the boot being up. I know it wasn't 2 foot, but yeah, it wasn't a poor touch, I think, from Wan-Bissaka, and then he just kind of lunged in and yeah, changed the game completely changed the game. I mean, as you said there, like, it's a different game if that doesn't happen. Like, I watched it and United were pretty comfortable. To be fair, the Young Boys, I thought they actually looked quite lively. Your man Elio up front, he was quite lively from the start.
Yeah.
You kind of looked and you thought maybe if they get something on the break, they could catch United here a little bit. But then when Ronaldo scores, you're thinking, yeah, this is just going to be a stroll in the park. And you might see Bruno get on the score sheet. You might see Sancho get his first goal for United, things like that. Ronaldo probably bag another, and you're just kind of thinking, yeah, it's going to be pretty run of the mill. But the game completely changed. United went fully into their shell with the 10 men. Young Boys came out of it as well. The atmosphere helped too, to be fair, which seemed like it was pretty good in Switzerland. So yeah, it was a pretty disastrous night, all things considered, for United, really. And then the problem is, then you look at it, you think, is this like just a one-off? You kind of look at it and you go, well, they started the season so well, really unbeaten in the league, blown away teams, blew away Leeds, blew away Newcastle, essentially. Like, if the red card doesn't happen, probably blow away Young Boys, not a big issue. Or is it a case of this is something that kind of exposes the tactical flaws maybe that are in Solskjaer's game? Because I don't think he managed that game at all well, really, as soon as the red card happened. So I think for United, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now in the next couple of weeks, and how is there going to be blowback from that result, in the sense that I know there has been a good bit in terms of the narrative of Solskjaer, is like his naivety and things like that, but I think they probably need a good result now at the weekend to get themselves back on track, because I think that's quite a big blow, and especially in the context of the group. I still think they'll qualify, probably handily enough, but I mean, it's not how you want to start the Champions League, especially when you've got like this squad of players that is on paper exceptional, and it's added one of, probably maybe the second best player of all time to it. Yeah, not the ideal start for United at all.
Yeah, young boys are supposed to be the gimme in this group stage, really. Like if you're looking at Villarreal, beat Manchester United in the Europa League final last year, and then Atalanta, who are a very, very well coached side in the Serie A. I mean, they were one of the most exciting teams to play in Europe over the last couple of years. So it's definitely not absolutely guaranteed that Manchester United go through in this group stage, but the reaction from the United setup to that red card is more interesting than the red card. Ollie, of course, after the game, gave out about the referee, said that he didn't, pretty much said that he didn't have the bottle to give Ronaldo the penalty, that, you know, give or take is a 50-50 penalty at best. But if you're looking at the reaction from Ollie in a tactical sense, he brings on Varane, goes to a 5 at the back, 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs, and then basically just parks the bus for the rest of the game. And United have 2 shots on target in the entire game, their worst ever tally in the Champions League, against the side from Switzerland who have only ever won, I think they're less than 5 games in the Champions League they've ever won. So, I mean, Jack, if this is Man City, they're dominating this game regardless. If this is Liverpool, they're dominating this game regardless. If this is Chelsea, they're absolutely not conceding 2 goals after going 1-0 up. I mean, it's real. It was real negative stuff from Ollie, and it was surprising, I guess.
Yeah, I thought so. Like one of the things that stuck out to me was the fact that they had less than I think 30% possession after the red card. I know obviously they're playing against 11 with 10 men, but you still expect with a team of that sort of quality that they'd still go and get a second get goal and kill the game off. You've just got to feel for Donny van de Beek. Like of course he gets in, and then immediately he's kind of like pulled after the red card. And as you said there yourself, like they go with 5 at the back, and obviously the idea is we'll let young boys attack us, and we've got enough quality on the break here that we should be able to go grab a second goal and kind of kill this game off. And it didn't happen. And the irony of the fact is all the hoopla regarding Ronaldo and pretty much justified by what we've seen against Newcastle, albeit a very forgettable day for my friend Woodman. It you couldn't. Like all of a sudden, like Solskjaer is put in this real situation of Ronaldo's probably the least likely to do running against 11 men, but he's also probably the least likely to get taken off the pitch as well. I even seen when he came off, he wasn't exactly thrilled, and that was in the 72nd minute. I mean, could you imagine the upheaval if he came off after the red card?
Yeah.
So it's obviously when it came to sacrificial lambs, they didn't get any higher than Donny van de Beek, I suppose, for Solskjaer. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I do get the substitutions, and there's a lot of criticism over them from there. But and I suppose they did have a lot less possession. But ultimately, like the goals that they conceded, I do think that's kind of football in a way. Like a ball's whipped into the box, it gets a nick on it, and it's too quick for the keeper. And the second, regardless of tactics, formations, or whoever's on the field, it's just an atrocious back pass that just gives a player the opportunity to score. So while I find the fascinating soap opera, and it's a bloodthirsty soap opera with United as well, like when one game goes off, it's like all of a sudden the Solskjaer out, the mob starts getting their torches lit and ready to go. Where I think ultimately I do think it is a blip because I just look at the nature of the goals conceded and I'm like that I don't know. Maybe the first one you can say, look, maybe that's a result of sitting back the entire time and maybe something like that's going to happen. But the second one is just 11, 10, 9 men. That's just it's inexcusable, I suppose. So that's how I viewed it.
Yeah, it's the sort of immediate reaction to immediately lay the blame at the door of Solskjaer here that is quite an interesting one, because when he does good, he seems to never get credit for it, because it's always the team behind him that get the credit, and then when he does bad, it's immediately all laid at his door. So it comes with the sort of the territory of being an inexperienced manager at the helm of Manchester United. I don't think he ever received the respect that a Tuchel would have received at Chelsea or whatever. But I guess the biggest issue I have with this, and I raised this on the podcast last week, was so Ronaldo comes in and there's loads of different strands to the Ronaldo transfer, but I did a poll on the Off the Ball Twitter account, and at halftime of that game, Ronaldo had scored the opener, and it asked the question: if Ronaldo finishes the game with 2 goals, but barely touches the ball, barely does anything else in the game, did he have a good game? So if he scores 2 goals but doesn't do anything else, did he have a good game? Overwhelmingly, people said yes. So that's where you're at with Ronaldo at the minute. He is a player who is not going to contribute to your games, but he will contribute in the best possible way with goals. So do you leave him on the pitch to get that contribution, that one contribution that he's going to give you, or do you bring on a player who's going to contribute elsewhere on the pitch where you badly need it down to 10 men? I get where United really lacked, though, was control of the game. And that comes into the Ronaldo transfer as well. I don't understand why they went for the big money. I know they got Ronaldo basically for free, but the big money move for Ronaldo on his contract, the big name up front, for no particular reason, they didn't really need him, instead of going for a CDM to play the number 6 role, who in the games like this, that you need to control the possession, you need to control the pace, you need to control everything about what happens in that game. They didn't have one on the pitch because they don't have one at the club. They have Fred, they have McTominay, they have a 40-year-old Matic. That's what they have at the club at the minute. And of all the transfers that they've made with Varane and Sancho, they all made sense. And then they went out with this ludicrous Ronaldo transfer. And that's where I have the issue with it. I just don't understand why they decided to go for that instead of the position they clearly, blatantly need. And now they're going to lay the blame at the fact that they don't have that player.
Look, it's difficult, because when you get offered Ronaldo, it's very, very hard to turn it down. If you get offered Ronaldo and you have the financial capabilities to take it, it's very, very difficult to turn it down, I think, when they look at, and United have often been guilty, I suppose, and the owners have often been guilty of looking at United as a business and not a football club, and that's just modern football. But when you look at it from a business perspective as well, you have probably one of the most marketable footballers on the planet. Yeah. You're thinking, every day of the week I want him. And it's not like he's going to be a net negative, really. He's going to score goals, but I get what you're saying in the sense that he doesn't solve a problem that they have. He adds to their team, but he doesn't solve a problem. And then you kind of go, well, if he's not solving a problem, is he worth bringing in? So I get you in that sense, but I think it's very, very hard for a team like, and as well as that, I think if it comes out that if he goes to City and the chance was there, the narrative comes out that the chance was there for United to bring Ronaldo back, and they didn't pull the trigger on it. There's the blowback on that is going to be serious. So I think it's challenging. I think there's no question about it, but I think they're 2 separate issues: the Ronaldo thing and the defensive midfielder thing. They should have bought a defensive midfielder anyway. Take Ronaldo out of the equation, regardless. They needed one of them from the start of the transfer window. Do you know what I mean? They didn't just suddenly need a defensive midfielder 2 days before the window ended. That should have been the priority. Okay, Varane's a good sign, and they definitely needed a centre half beside Maguire. Sancho was coming regardless. They were going to get him. They need him or not is another story, but they were going to get him. They've been pursuing him. At the start then, how a defensive midfielder is not identified amongst those 2 signings early on is beyond me. So I think they're probably 2 separate issues. And I don't know that, I'm on the fence in a sense. I can fully understand why United would sign Ronaldo over defensive midfielder, but you still need a defensive midfielder, and you needed that months and months ago. So I think it's tricky. I think it's tricky.
Yeah, well, the word is they're going for Declan Rice next year, and that'll solve everything. But the question I would ask, Jack, is, so I don't actually doubt that Solskjaer is a decent coach, or whoever he has there is a decent coach in some way or form. I think the evidence to prove that is how far Luke Shaw has come under this system, and other players that have improved, the likes of Rashford and Greenwood. But should they not be able to solve this issue with the players that they have? I just feel a higher level coach comes in and looks at this squad that they have and says, yes, okay, I can work with this, no problem, and figures it out. Like how Tuchel took Lampard's defense that was absolutely shambolic, and within weeks he turned them into the best defense in the league, the best defense in Europe, and won the Champions League. It just feels like Solskjaer, who I think has proven a lot of people wrong in the sense of how bad people thought he was as a manager. I think he is capable of managing a Premier League club, but a top 6 club, I would have my questions about now because of his record in the Champions League and then his record against the bigger teams. I know he's able to pull off big results, but sustainably, they're not able to do that. And I just feel if Tuchel comes in, if Klopp comes in, if Pep comes in, Pochettino, maybe even Conte comes in, within 6 months, this team are proper Premier League contenders. Whereas under Solskjaer, I think it's always a hope that they will soon become that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just think like so much of this goes back to Ferguson and the post-Ferguson era. Then from there, right? So like for me, it goes Moyes. Moyes doesn't work out, so they go back to back. They go Van Gaal and Jose Mourinho. Then they go, let's get the proven winners. And then it didn't work out with either of those things. Van Gaal, 1 degree. Jose, not really surprising when we see kind of how it's 3 years and out at every single club he's at, and it always leaves in smithereens. United being no exception. So then they go complete 180. They go, right, let's go back to our roots. People that, quote unquote, know the club. And Ollie being one of those. And then they start going, let's go back to youth and we'll buy Dan James and the like. And they start going in a kind of different direction then from there. The idea being that like Solskjaer comes in and is the immediate substitute teacher of, oh geez, everyone can breathe and relax now that like, we don't have Jose throwing up fingers in the middle of press conferences demanding respect. Like it's, or, making a show of Paul Pogba at training. It's just, and so they go on a tear from there. Obviously kind of highlighted by the famous win in Paris. And all of a sudden but then when you look at the squad still, to a large degree, I think so much the Pogba criticism over the last couple of years is because for a while there, Pogba was looked at the talisman, right? Where it's like, and he's not that type of player. Like he's thrived in squads like you see him now, where he's probably the third biggest star now in that United team. Same with the France team, same with the Juve team. Like if you just drop Pogba on Leicester City and we're like, all right, go win a title, it'd just be unrealistic. So when they start getting Bruno, who's obviously, I think it's Cantona-esque, the kind of effect that he's had, and then you add Sancho and Varane to that mix now. Now you've got like a legitimate squad that can compete for a title. The Ronaldo point, as kind of Oisin was alluding on, to me, as he said, like if it leaks out that United could have got him and that City get him instead, that's going to cause anarchy. And you're talking about a club where they literally got the United Liverpool fixture thrown off because of a pitch invasion last season. And now all of a sudden Ronaldo's in and then Avram Glazer's there in the stands with big smiles on his face. So there is an element of that. Avram, doing the Conor McGregor strut back into the stadium after bringing Viva Ronaldo through. So like, I think ultimately now, like, look, they're a David De Gea penalty miss away from winning the Europa League last year. In a game they probably should have won. They've no excuse not to qualify from the Champions League, and really with this squad, they've no excuse not to win some sort of trophy this year, if not go very close to the title. So that's how I view it. Whether Solskjaer has the chops to do that, this is the ultimate season. If he doesn't, I think he's gone. But in his defense, as you said there, look at Harry Maguire 12 months ago, where he was after the whole, nightclub incident in a couple of howlers for England, and how kind of solid he's been over the last 12 months. That Newcastle game getting skinned by Almiron withstanding. But Luke Shaw, Greenwood, Rashford, like there's been proper development of players. So that would be the pro-Ollie side. The anti-Ollie side is United have spent $500 million over the last 5 years and still haven't won a trophy. So it's a very interesting topic to say the least.
Yeah, ironically, if he was the director of football, it would be an amazing job, the squad overall that he's done in the last 3-4 years. Before we finish up in United, one hypothetical question that came up last night in the news round, which was quite interesting, from Ronan Mullen. The power shift at United now that Ronaldo's there with Ollie. So before Ronaldo comes in, Solskjaer is by far and away the most successful player or person at the club. He's been there, done that, won a treble. No player in the team has done remotely what Ollie has done for their clubs. And then suddenly you throw Ronaldo in there, who's won the Champions League for United, won multiple leagues for United, won the Ballon d'Or while at the club, and he's back now probably the most powerful man at the club right now. Could he get Ollie sacked if he wanted to? If let's say things aren't going well, Ronaldo sees this as his last couple of years, his homecoming at the club that he made his name. Could he get Ollie sacked and get someone else in? Do you think he has that much power?
Probably does. It's that kind of that thought process is very reminiscent, I suppose. Like it feels very NBA style, kind of LeBron James when he first went to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't actually know who the coach was, but he ended up essentially getting him sacked, and then Ty Lue came in and they won the championship. So it kind of feels like he has that star power. Like Ronaldo is in the same stratosphere as a LeBron James. So if you look at it from that perspective, definitely it's something that could happen. And I feel as though Ronaldo's the golden goose, really, isn't he? Like that's the one. You know what I mean? Like they essentially tried to move mountains to get him this season. And as you said, Jack, like it's kind of eased the pain of the United fans, and Avram was kind of looking at it as like, here's a peace offering. It's only the best player in the world, that kind of thing. So I'd say if Ronaldo wants it, if it's Ronaldo or Solskjaer, I think I know which one the Glazers are going to choose if it comes down to it.
Yeah, Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking LeBron as much as like the Corleone Godfather dynamic, where I think like does Ollie become like the Fredo Corleone, and then like obviously Fergie is still like the aging Vito, and there's clearly like a power vacuum for Michael, or in this case Ronaldo, to kind of step in and kind of like take control of the club. Yeah, it could be interesting because while he is the most like accomplished in terms of accomplishments as a player, there is a sense that he's very much still improving as a manager. And you just imagine that like Ronaldo is the loudest voice in the room. If the whole Man United dessert stuff is anything to go by this week, where it literally now people are like looking at his plate, and it took the signing of Ronaldo for them to cut out fries and cheeseburgers and custard. Yeah, like that kind of immediately. I know it's completely trivial as dessert, but it does kind of show the immediate influence he has there within 2 weeks. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I think a lot of this is depending on results, and to be honest, I think a lot of this is depending on the Champions League. Like they're down to the young boys, although what many think should be the whipping boys of that group. They like if he qualifies, I think everything will be gravy. This will just be a complete overreaction, United hysteria. If they don't, I think there's no real excuse not to qualify from the group stage for the type of squad they have.
Yeah, that dessert story, Ollie was very quick to do that down a little bit. He in the press conference afterwards, when he was asked about it, he basically said, it's not as if we've been eating chocolate brownies every day after our dinners. Well, the leaked dessert did come out. The leaked menu came out a couple of months ago of the United team out for dinner together, and there was plenty of desserts on that list. I'm pretty sure that Luke Shaw had ice cream and brownies, so he needs to keep on that. Needs to keep
my whole thing in Ollie downplaying that. What does Lee Grant have to lose in this situation? Like the ancient third choice goalkeeper potentially prepping for a media career here. Like I don't have reason to doubt Lee Grant there.
No, I think I believe the story. I just think that they're probably on a fairly set menu, but they are eating desserts, so it's interesting. And Luke Shaw, who's going to deny Luke Shaw in the form that he's at a chocolate brownie at the end of the day? He has to keep his energy levels up. Anyway, that is Manchester United in the Champions League. They will no doubt be a talking point going forward. We do want to talk about Liverpool and a little bit about Man City, not so much their performance, but more their fans' reaction to Pep Guardiola's comments today. So we'll take a quick break, and after the break, we will touch on all of that. Stay tuned.
Team 33. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Now you're welcome back to Team 33. Enda Coll here with you for the next half an hour or so. Joined on the line by Oisin McQuierns and by Jack O'Toole as we run through the Champions League week one of the Champions League group stages. Manchester United lost to Young Boys 2-1. We've covered that in the first half of the show. Liverpool were dramatic winners, 3-2 winners against AC Milan. Reminders of the Champions League classics between the two of those sides in the mid to late noughties. And Man City 6-3 winners against German side RB Leipzig, a thriller in the Etihad for that one. we'll start with Liverpool, guys. I guess this was a big win for them, especially considering the fact that they went down 2-1 to AC Milan. Jordan Henderson scoring a lovely winner in this game. But I want to touch on Mo Salah because he's been a talking point over the last week or so, scoring 100 goals in the Premier League. And I guess there's a lot of talking about whether he's underrated and whether he's, part of the Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, these great names of the Premier League years, whether he's up in that echelon. But it got me thinking, because clearly Mo Salah has been exceptional talent over the last 5 years in the Premier League. And but I think he's gotten himself into a weird situation here where he is so overrated. He's so underrated that he's now become overrated. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because this happens to a couple of players where they're really, really, really good, don't potentially get the credit they deserve for 3 or 4 months because, there's other players doing their stuff. Bruno, for example, doing it at Manchester United. And then suddenly people start talking about them as if they're criminally underrated players and almost do them up better than they are. So I guess that's a very clunky way of asking, where does Mo Salah rank in terms of his quality in the Premier League? Jack, you can take this one.
Yeah, he definitely is underrated. As someone that took Harry Kane first in a 11-man fantasy draft over Mo Salah, I'm certainly feeling just how underrated Mo Salah is. No, he's exceptional. I do think it kind of ties into, I suppose, just the narratives around football and football transfers. So, like, what I mean by that is, like, it's all like, 97 million on Lukaku coming to Chelsea, and you look how, like, that's the goal scorer. He's the missing piece they need. And look, that's not wrong. Like, but what I mean is, Jack Grealish, 100 million to City, that becomes the focus. Ronaldo, here comes, the prodigal son back to Old Trafford. And in the midst of it all, it's like Liverpool haven't really spent anything. Like, I know they brought Canade in, but their own fans are, in turmoil. Basically, who are we signing? Who are we signing? And just the whole punditry as well. Like, you just seen like guys like Graham Souness and the likes over, like, if you don't go out and spend and rebuild your squad, you're going to get left behind. You can't keep pace with the rest of these teams. And it's just like, this team got decimated by injury last year. Like, they'd Reece Williams and Nat Phillips and, like, playing centre back. They'd know that Jordan Henderson and Fabinho starting centre backs last game. They just, like, they had a horrific run of injury. And now they're back full strength. And when they were back full strength, what did they go? They had plus 90 points in back-to-back seasons, won one Premier League and won a Champions League in the other. And they're looking like the team that had that. Now, like, obviously the depth is going to be a question when you kind of look past the first 11 with them. But if they keep everyone fit, and Klopp isn't like a Pep or a Tuchel in the fact that he rotates a lot. He generally sticks with the main kind of core players, the key parts of the team. So I think, with all that said, Salah's greatness is kind of lost in the mix. But I mean, like, you just think, like, that Leeds goal that he got. I'm sure you watched it, Oisin, a couple of times, but like, he initially, the ball, probably he's expecting the ball to kind of be played through, and he doesn't kind of get a return pass. And rather than just throw his hands up in the air, he just repositions himself, and Trent whips it across and he gets a nick on it and it goes in. And I think that's just like the greatness of him. Like, it's not really him rampaging on the wing on a counter attack and beating someone and sticking it in the top corner. It's just, the guy's just like a complete footballer. Like, he rather than throw his hands up and say I didn't get the ball, he just repositions quickly and gets it on the second go. I just think he's utterly phenomenal, and I think he's the linchpin of that Liverpool team, probably along with Van Dijk.
Yeah, the transfer issues with Liverpool is an interesting one, because I mean, the transfer window has become a competition in itself for especially online supporters, as opposed to, I wouldn't say match-going fans are too entrenched in the transfer window, whereas I think the online support is absolutely insane about it. But Liverpool can't act like Chelsea. They can't act like Man City for obvious reasons. Their ownership model is completely different. That doesn't, that's not washing FSG's hands off the furloughing situations and some of the issues that they had, but they can't act the same as a Russian oligarch or a state-funded oil club. So Liverpool just can't rebuild the same way that Man City and the same way that Chelsea can do But I think Klopp's done an exceptional job here because he rode the storm of last year. They managed to squeak into the Champions League, and now they've got their full squad together back. Diogo Jota is obviously a good addition to it. And the likes of Curtis Jones coming through I thought he was exceptional against AC Milan. I thought he was such an exciting player to watch. Oisin, do you have Liverpool as title contenders this year? Are they going to be able to sustain this, or do you think they've lost a little bit of what made them special in that 2 years, 3 year stretch?
No, I think the only thing is squad depth. That'd be the only little thing. I still don't even think that's a massive issue necessarily. Now, it's easy to say when you consider injuries haven't really played that much part this season. Harvey Elliott obviously is out, but that I actually think that will be quite a blow, because I think Liverpool were going to kind of lean on Harvey Elliott quite a bit this season in probably a number of positions, because he is that versatile. I know he's in the 18, but he's that versatile that he can probably play a number of different positions in the midfield or out wide if they need it. So like you look at who they've lost as well, like Shaqiri gone as well. Shaqiri gone doesn't necessarily seem like that's a massive loss really when you look at what he's contributed, but like he's always there for squad depth. And for me, that's the only thing that will stop them, because against Leeds they were superb. They were by a million miles a better team. And a couple of times I watched them against, was it Norwich and I think Burnley as well, because they drew at Chelsea. They were both of those games as well. They just blew those teams away. Even last night they were by far, like, now in fairness to Milan, they brought it back. So I don't know how Milan went 2-1 up in that game, because I think Liverpool had like 11 shots in the first 15 minutes. I was watching this and I was like, this is next level. They were absolutely flying it. So for me, the only thing is just that kind of squad depth. Other than that, if they had 2 or 3 more players, you say, if they had 2 or 3 more, like high level, if they have 2 or 3 more players who are like on, say, someone like Shaqiri's level or Curtis Jones's level in that squad, I'd say without a doubt they're second, third favourites probably to win the title. But I think it's a long season, and like the fact that they're in Champions League as well, like you mentioned it too, like Klopp doesn't rotate necessarily. He can't rotate really, can he? I mean, when he brings players in, he tried to do it last night. Brought in Origi, he was fine, didn't do that much. Van Dijk was on the bench, and like they almost lost that game. And you look at it and you go, okay, well, AC Milan, like games of the past, European giant, nowhere near the same AC Milan team as before. Nowhere near. They're not even close to be as good as what they were. And I think they showed that last night. I didn't think they were that great, to be honest with you. When they went 2-1 up, and I couldn't believe they went 2-1 up. I was like, I'm not really having Milan here. And then obviously Liverpool went on to win it. But the only thing is that little bit of squad depth that will stop them, I'd say. I mean, now obviously it's like Chelsea and City are both going to contend too. But the only thing that will stop them from being in and around there is probably that squad depth. And if something like last season happens, where they get injuries to a catastrophic level, then they're in big trouble. Because last season they were able to. Okay, they were kind of able to cope with it. They still got top 4. They brought in makeshift players. They made it work, which actually is a testament to Klopp when you probably think about it, how well they did with such a makeshift team. But if that happens this season, I think they're even lighter than they were last season, and they could be in real trouble. But as we're going now, it's going well.
Well, that's the thing about the Liverpool situation, is that up until last season, everyone was saying that they were a Van Dijk injury away from a disaster. And then it came in the form of a Van Dijk injury, followed by a Joe Gomez injury, followed by multiple other injuries that, were real issues for them. But I guess, again, not to bring this back to Manchester United, but that sort of reminds me.
To bring this back to Manchester United.
I'm not to bring it back, but I'm going to bring it back. What I was saying about Ole earlier, about his coaching and his ability to change things in the situations that he needs to change them. Klopp was faced with the best defender in the world out for the year, his partner out for the year, playing a centre mid, a centre back, midfielders, Thiago coming in, being injured, Firmino getting injured, Salah being out for a while, Alisson being away for different reasons. And he still finished top 4. Regardless of how they got there in the end. They got to top 4. You're just thinking, what happens Manchester United if, Harry Maguire is out for the year, and that's followed by Victor Lindelof being out for the year, and that's followed by Paul Pogba being out for a prolonged period. That's followed by, let's say, Ronaldo this season being. United are not finishing top 4, and I think that shows you the top level coaching, what a top level coach can do. And Klopp has proven himself for the last 10 years that he is an absolute world beater of a coach. And I think, Yeah, Liverpool for me, they're not title contenders this year. I think Chelsea are just unstoppable at this point. But and that's only what 3 weeks into the season, but it's a long season. I don't think Liverpool have the squad depth, like you said, to sustain it over the last 15 weeks of the season. Let's move on to Manchester City. There's a couple of things I want to talk about before we finish up, so we won't spend too much time on this. But it's just kind of a funny story, I guess. Pep Guardiola has found himself in a bit of hot water, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the club supporters club. Basically, Klopp had a statement out or an interview where he essentially begged people to come out and watch Man City play football. He said, "I would like more people to come out to the game next Saturday. We will need the people next Saturday, please, because we are all tired. I invite our people to come out next Saturday, 3 p.m. to watch the game." When's the Man City game on, Oisin?
I don't know. They're playing Southampton, aren't they? I know that anyway.
Yeah, that was a
3
joke.
o'clock on Saturday, I think.
Yeah, that was a joke that just did not land. He said Saturday, but
and what I was doing, I was thinking of other things that Manchester City could possibly be doing at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. I was like, they're probably wallpapering their house, maybe washing their cars. I was like, what could they possibly be doing? I don't know. Not watching Man City anyway. Like,
no, yeah, like do you know the meme on Twitter where you're like, they say that, you know, if you want to come out, I'm free on Saturday when I'll be free next Saturday. That was Pep Guardiola's that was Pep Guardiola's interview. But essentially, he's begging people to come out and watch Manchester City. You know times are bad when you've just spent 100 million on Jack Grealish and you have to ask your fans to come watch the game. I mean, I know people make fun of Man City for this exact issue, but I mean, this just shows you what a joke of a club Man City are at times when it comes to, you know, the level of support they get for the quality of side that they have. It's amazing that the manager has to ask people to come.
But is this not why they went after Grealish and Kane in the first place? Is to try and like build this, you know, domestic following, like go after the England captain, and I suppose like this generation's David Beckham, is to try and increase this whole, you know, domestic support. Because I was only looking there on my phone to see what the attendance was. I think it was 45,000, which is still 10,000 short of the capacity. But I was thinking about it out today because I was talking about the whole Pep press conference, basically trying to invite everyone over to the Etihad for a barbecue of Southampton as they get turned upside down. But like basically, I was looking at it and I was like, when you often hear the Gallagher brothers being the two kind of most famous City fans talk about the buzz of Main Road and you know, the Main Road days and stuff like that, but that was 35,000 of capacity, and the Etihad is 55,000, and it just shows you that even with this whole kind of sports washing City, you know, basically building a super team over the last decade to go and assault every single competition, it doesn't actually translate to increase 20,000 fans. Where if you go across the other side of Manchester, it's a 75,000 sellout every time. And what I was thinking of is it's not the only sport that this has happened in. So recently, for those that kind of follow basketball, the Brooklyn Nets have assembled like probably one of the best teams that's ever been put together. They've got Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. So they're like 3 top 15 players in a league where there's only 5 people on the court at once. And they probably would have won an NBA championship if they didn't lose Kyrie Irving and have James Harden come off a hamstring injury. They were one shot away, or getting to the finals anyway. But before that, basically, they bring this team together in Brooklyn, and they have literally these guys do promos asking people to come to the games, come to the playoff games. Where, by comparison, the New York Knicks have been a joke and a laughing stock for 30 years. And they get to the playoffs for the first time in like 8 years with a team that's a scrappy kind of, you know, ragtag bunch that aren't expected to do anything and ultimately get blown out in the first round. But the tickets for Madison Square Garden sell out within like 3 minutes flat. And it just shows you there's more to than assembling super teams that put bums on seats. As much as people follow players now and they're Ronaldo or Messi fans as opposed to Madrid or Barca fans, there is a sense that the culture and the history of a club does actually kind of carry more weight than maybe what some of these organizations think.
Yeah. Look, I'm not looking to insult any Manchester City fans who
Don't need
are
that. We
actual.
already had the Watford fans and the Brighton
Yeah,
fans.
the Watford fans and Brighton
No
fans are enough for
fans
me. So
left.
I don't want to insult Man City fans here, but I was at the Etihad a couple of years ago for the Arsenal Man City game, and I mean it's a lovely stadium, but I bought my ticket for Man City Arsenal 3 days before the game happened, and this I mean like I just shouldn't have been able to do that. That should have been virtually impossible for me to do, but because of the size of the stadium where it's at, it's far out from the city. And I guess it sort of reminds me of the argument around the Super League is that, you had these quote unquote legacy fans, as the Super League referred to them as. And a lot of people were saying, oh, this just shows you clubs don't care about the fans. And I guess the argument then arose was, are these fans that important? Do they even need them? Do the clubs even need these fans? And the answer is yes. The clubs absolutely do need these hardcore base of fans, because if you don't have those, you're left with people who are coming into it, and the atmosphere, the product is weakened because of that. And Man City just seems my experience of that had was people who were out for the day enjoying themselves without really
But
having one section that was proper hardcore fans who were there every single week. It just didn't seem to have the same sort of draw as Old Trafford did. So it's a weird one for Man City.
but
They've had success. So you just wonder, maybe in 50 years time, will that success stand them in the same stead as Manchester City's success in the 90s stood to them?
yeah, but like everything they do just irks me. Like they just in terms of like
The City
in
fans
terms
are
from no, but from a football perspective, if you just give like say Brighton £1 billion over the next decade, like City have done from a player acquisition point of view, they've hit on all aces. Like they really have. But all the other stuff they do is just tin pot. Like we start with the jerseys, right? They got the watermelon jersey and like the double decker jersey. Then you go on that whole aquarium thing where they basically like they have like this exclusive club, and it's like you go a dinner and you get either wheel in an assistant coach or a legend to give thing, and then you get brought down to the tunnel where you look at the players like zoo animals. And then like they bring in the statues. The statues they bring in of company and silver tin pot. Like the video that they have of celebrating with the league, where it's like if you like your team, stand up and clap your hands. Like everything they do is just like it's just off and it's just
Yeah,
cringy.
do you know
And
what?
it's just
Can I just interrupt? Do you know what it is? I wouldn't call it tin pot. I would call it PR from people who don't understand football, for people who think they know what football
this
fans
is it
want, but it's just one big marketing bollocks, and nobody can identify with it.
at all. And it's just like from the player, like they've just gone Pep. We just have divine trust in you. That part they hit on, and every other kind of part of building a club and building some sort of like authentic feel. This is why they have their manager out begging for people fans, because everyone's just looking like the jersey they have looks like straight out of pennies. That one they have, like it's like
That's Puma's fault, though. In fairness,
but still, it's another example of like a long list of stuff that they just like they completely whiff on, and it doesn't detract from this view that most people have, which is this is just like a sports washing, brainwashing exercise for football domination.
yeah. Sounds like a very masterful plan there. Anybody who was listening to the start of this podcast and wants to know how Celtic are doing, especially if you're listening on the radio and you want to know how Celtic are doing a day late, they're currently 4-2 down, having been 2-0 up to this in the first half. So it's good. I think I held my tongue fairly well over the last 30 minutes as Celtic conceded goal after goal after goal after goal. So God knows what score this is going to end up, but Celtic were 2-0 up in the first half of the show. Now they're 4-2 down against Real Betis in the Europa League. I guess before we finish up, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on. There was an article on The Guardian by John Davey, which was quite interesting, and essentially asking, it kind of ties into the Man City thing. What, as a neutral, who would you support now if you could support any team? Who would you support? Oisin, I know you have to go, so I'll let you have the first choice here. If you were to start all over without Leeds being an option to you, who's the most the team that draws the most attention to you in terms of what they do on the pitch, off the pitch, and the sort of the feeling you would get from going to watch them?
Probably Liverpool, I'd say. I think maybe we Liverpool. I couldn't United. No, Chelsea and City. Well, I can't do City. It's definitely not City after we've just been giving out about them for the last 20 minutes. But Chelsea are just too. Nah, Chelsea aren't. I feel like Chelsea are still one of those. Like they're a great side, but I mean, you know where their money comes from, and they're not a club with massive. They're gonna get slightly for this, but not a club with massive tradition really. Whereas you look at a club like Liverpool and you think, yeah, like the atmosphere at the stadium is pretty good. I mean, seems like it anyway. Like Klopp is a very likable manager, got a lot of likable players. They had that nice, like a drought is always good. If your team has a nice drought, that's always a good thing to get behind. They had that with the Premier League. They've Salah, Mane, Firmino, probably the best. They had the best front three in the world for a couple of years. Probably not quite at that level now, but yeah, I probably would have to go with Liverpool. I think other options. I don't even know what other options I'd go for. Like Spurs, Spurs are a bit not Spurs. Not going Arsenal, and then the rest of them that's the City or the Manchester clubs can't do that. And then that's about it. Leicester City would be kind of interesting, maybe, but like if you're going to start supporting them now, you've already missed probably their bet. Like they're not winning the league, probably. So I would say probably Liverpool was when I read the article. Liverpool was the first one that immediately stood out to me, and that was in terms of league title wins over the last few years. That's probably the one that I kind of was happy for. The rest of them I was a bit nonplussed about. Even the Leicester one, I was kind of like, whatever. But I think I'd probably go with Liverpool. But I think it's an interesting debate to have, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. Right, Oisin, I'll let you go. Thanks for joining us.
Lads. Thank you.
Jack, do you want to jump in with your choice?
Yeah, probably. I was thinking about this earlier. Like, it's like I view this as like two kind of spectrums. There's one that's like obviously the Premier League is going to be the one that draws the eye, and that's going to be the biggest sports league in the world. So if you're going to watch that a lot, you might as well pick a team in it. And from like maybe like a football manager type of mode where you're looking at like he's kind of taking a dump on Spurs, but I kind of like what they've done coming from the Martin Yall and White Hart Lane days into this huge stadium and Champions League final, and they're a relevant team, at least a team that can contend or look like they can contend for a top four, maybe not this year, but over the course of the last decade. Same with Leicester City. But from just like the more I kind of think about this, I just think Bohemians, like I do think there's something more natural about, because there is the element of, by far the Premier League is the best product I think across any of the leagues, but there is an element of football fandom which is like going to the game, the chipper in the corner at Dalymount having its kind of 15 minutes of fame, the Bob Marley murals to fill in the history of having Dalymount Park hosting those concerts, and Irish games in the past, the Irish Italy games, like the home of Irish football. Like there is that sense of having a proper ground and being able to go and support your local team. They're not going to make the Champions League. They're never going to they might not play in the Europa League. I think they're in the Europa Conference. Like maybe that's a shot, but it's more of the success and what's on the pitch is almost secondary to just the experience of being able to meet your mates and the kid going with his dad and that type of stuff. So I think I'd encourage people to kind of enjoy that experience, because you can be both. I think you can coexist. Even if you're a United fan, you can still be a Bows fan. You don't have to spend 500 odd quid and get the hotel and the plane and the match ticket over and the scarf. Like you can, I think they can coexist.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I just assumed this would be going for Premier League clubs, so it's a nice surprise. I've actually got the experience this year. I know I would say that Bows are a team that I have a very soft spot for, because Dalymount's a really good stadium to go watch football in, and it's just a really good club. I've had the experience of supporting a relegation battler over the last few years with Finn Harps.
Oh yeah,
I gotta say it's thoroughly enjoyable. It's thoroughly enjoyable because I was up at the Shamrock Rovers game and the St. Pat's game the last couple of weeks ago, not expecting anything. You're expecting just a nice tight game, might nick a goal to draw it, and you go up and Ollie has taken in the line another 2 yards from where it was the week before. And Tunde Owolabi, who's playing really well for them this year, bullying the Shamrock Rovers defenders and just nicking goals here and there, scoring really good goals and winning those games. The feeling you get supporting a relegation club coming up against those bigger teams is indescribable in comparison to supporting a team like Manchester United, who I also support. It's a different type of sport. It's a really interesting way of watching football. But yeah, League of Ireland's something that I would encourage on everyone without being too preachy about it, because I don't think that helps either.
Yeah, no, it's basically, and you do see different levels of it. Like there's you see them. Even Newcastle ultimately got battered on the weekend. There was that sense when they equalised, and their fans are absolutely going nuts. Like, we're going to spoil the United homecoming or the Ronaldo homecoming here. Like, there were general real atmosphere there from that, and because the reason they're celebrating so much is because they know they should be getting played off the park by United, and ultimately they did. But for a moment there, for a couple of minutes, there was pure hysteria there. And in terms of like a League of Ireland point, like, yeah, there's just some stuff that you see that like you just like, as much knocks as it get, there is a novelty. Like, I remember seeing Keith Long looking for his car keys on the pitch one time, walking around in a pre-season game in a housing estate, basically. It was, again, just Bows fans just like emerging from the shadows. Like, just 5 minutes before kickoff, it was like there was 10 people there, and then all of a sudden there was like near 1,000, 2,000 people. And I was like, oh my God, like, but it's a proper tribal following, like, and it's people's club. And I think this is what you do see with, the likes of the United and Manchester and these type of clubs that spawn off, AFC Wimbledon after Wimbledon gets moved from their hometown. Like, the football club is ultimately the community. But it's not, but then again, I just spent 15 minutes ago knocking City apart for being the antithesis of it. So, like, it's a funny game. There seems to be room for both the the $1 billion conglomerate and also the local team starting back up and going through the pyramid. So it's there's room for all, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. Jack O'Toole, thanks very much.
And thanks for having us.
Team 33. This